Welcome. Today, I'm going to be talking about what happened to me when I injected my tendon with peptides. Yes, I went directly into the tendon. I stabbed it up and I injected some peptides into that mofo to try and regenerate it after bicep surgery. So, to start off with, the peptides that I used are BPC 157, a classic, TB 500, another one of the usual suspects, and GHK copper blue. I started looking on YouTube and I was researching whether it mattered where. I was researching where you should inject these things. Should you inject them subcutaneously, as is the standard, intramuscularly, closer to the site of the surgery, or maybe directly into the tendon itself? So basically, I was doing a bit of research and there was this one practitioner on YouTube. He did surgeries, he did things like stem cells and PRP, platelet-rich plasma. And when he was treating a tendon, often at the time of treatment, he would inject directly into the tendon to aid with the recovery. Now, according to this practitioner, there's a 3-to-5 ratio when comparing the quantities of BPC 157 that have to be administered subcutaneously versus orally. So for every 3 units that you inject subcutaneously, you would need to take 5 units orally to generate the same effect. However, and according to this guy, he said that it didn't really matter if you did a subcutaneous injection over the site where the injury was, or if you kind of did it somewhere else in your body. He said that it would basically go into the bloodstream, circulate around the body, and find the tissues which needed growth, regeneration, help, and those tissues would respond and the BPC 157 would work. It's magic. There was one caveat to this though. He said that injecting directly into the tendon would produce superior outcomes when it comes to tendon regeneration. So we're getting into kind of about 2 weeks post surgery. My arm was in a splint, which I took off early, but it was officially taken off after about 10 days. And then I really had access to the area where the surgery had been done. Now, I wasn't really sure about the whole anatomy, so I was just kind of putting the peptides subcutaneously all around the area. And I started to go a bit deeper. I started to push it into the muscle, a little bit closer to the bone, so that the tendons could have the surgery, the peptides could have a greater localized effect. And then I looked at this guy's research, this YouTuber, this surgeon, this practitioner, and I decided to take the plunge and try injecting directly into the tendon. Stab it up, inject it up, see what happens. So the first peptide I used was the BPC 157 because it seems to be the most benign peptide when it comes to tendon repair and regeneration and everything like this. It doesn't cause any itching, any post-injection pain, and it's pretty mild. So I was doing the BPC 157 subcutaneously, and yeah, I decided to go into the tendon. When I first put the needle into the tendon, I pressed down on the plunger, and it was like I was pressing down kind of hard, and the fluid wasn't going anywhere. It was just staying in the syringe. And so what I would do is I would withdraw it a tiny bit because I'm only just going into the surface of the tendon. And then once the needle had come out from the tendon and there was actually somewhere for the fluids to go, then I'd apply the pressure on the plunger and boop, it would suddenly come out, and I would be injecting the compound just outside the tendon. And I was hoping that that would actually bathe the tendon in the restorative peptide. Now, as time went on, I kind of just decided I'd push a little harder. And it turns out that if you press hard enough on the plunger, you can inject into the tendon. With the tendon, it's not like muscle where you've got these kind of fluid filled sacs, cells with intracellular space and all this stuff. The structure of the tendon seems to be a lot tighter with like lots of fibers, and there's just not anywhere really for the fluid to go when you inject it. So if you press down hard enough, though, it will go in. So I was using the BPC 157, and this seemed to be going well. Basically, I was doing my physio, I was doing my rehab exercises, and if I pushed it a little too hard, I would get some discomfort in the area where the surgery happened. And it's kind of understandable. You know, I've had my bone drilled, I've had the tendon stitched into the area, and it's a bit of a mess. It's understandable for there to be a little bit of pain. What I experienced, though, is when I injected the BPC 157 directly into the tendon, I'd wake up the next morning and the pain would be gone, like totally gone. So it seemed to have an improved effect to just injecting it outside the tendon locally. And I was pretty pleased with this. So then I progressed on to using a little bit of TB500 as well. Now, with the TB500, I have noticed some signs of kind of irritation, inflammation after I inject it. Sometimes the area gets a little bit itchy. And yeah, I've noticed with other injuries when I've used it before that sometimes it might feel a little bit worse before feeling better occasionally, and I was a little more hesitant about using the TB500, but it seemed to be okay, and I wasn't noticing any severe side effects, and it had gotten to about at least a month and a half post-surgery before I really started hammering the GHK copper. And I had one vial left of the GHK copper, which, may I say, is a beautiful peptide. It's bright purpley blue in color, and it's weird injecting something that's that colorful into your body. It's like a dye or something. It's crazy. Anywho, and a 50 milligram bottle of GHK copper, and you only do like 5 milligrams per injection. So yeah, I had a whole bunch of doses there, and I kept on injecting the tendon until the bottle was mostly gone. Now, what I did notice when I was using the GHK copper is a lot of itchiness, a little bit of pain in the area. And Vigorous Steve says that GHK copper is one of the more painful peptides to inject. You do get a little bit of post-injection pain, and that's a sign that there's some type of inflammation. Now, all of these peptides, BPC 157, TB500, and GHK copper, they cause angiogenesis, which is the proliferation of new blood vessels, and collagen synthesis. So your tendons made of collagen, it's the connective tissue, it's very important for recovery to have a good amount of collagen synthesis. And you know, having some blood supply to a tendon would be great because there is no direct blood supply to a tendon. It's more of an osmotic uptake of nutrients instead of kind of blood vessels supplying it directly. So the healing is very slow. Anyway, I digress. after I'd gotten through the majority of the vial of the GHK copper, and we're talking, it's getting on for like 2 months post-surgery now, I really noticed that my tendon was becoming a lot thicker. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I've been injecting this one area loads and my arm's feeling great. And my tendon's getting really thick. I started squeezing it. I'm like, wow, it's getting really, really thick. It must be generating a lot of collagen synthesis. Perfect. This is exactly what I'm looking for. But I started to worry when I could see that it wasn't really kind of globally getting thicker, kind of throughout the length of the tendon. It was just on that one point where I'd been injecting, and it formed basically a ball on the side of the tendon. And it wasn't at the bottom where the tendon attached to the bone, which is really where I should have been injecting. There was so much inflammation at the start. There was so much swelling in the arm that I couldn't really see or feel where the tendon ended. So I just kind of injected it as low down as I could feel the tendon in my swollen forearm. And basically, it was like a part of the way up from the tendon attachment. The tendon was thin, and then it got thick with a big ball basically on the side of the tendon. To me, it felt like it was about the size of the end of my little finger, just a growth that had happened, which was on the side of it. And that was pretty disconcerting because there's kind of two problems. Firstly, if you cause a lot of collagen synthesis and it's not normal, like normally you've got all these fibers which are aligned and they can handle the kind of tensile loads that the tendon is subjected to, and it operates nicely. It's flexible but yet strong. Now, what can happen if you get kind of irregular collagen synthesis and kind of scar tissue forming is that area could be extra strong and really strong and stiff though, and not that elastic. And maybe that area could crack that could break, and then the whole tendon could rupture at that point again, which is something I really don't want to happen. Or that ball on the side could be extra strong and maybe the tendon would rip around it, which is something, again, I don't want to happen. Now, you've got another possibility that there's been a lot of local inflammation caused. Now, one of the consultants that I was consulting with prior to my surgery, when I questioned him about the use of peptides and stuff, he said, just don't use anything which causes inflammation. When there's inflammation in the tendon can become kind of jelly-like and flexible. Now, the flexibility, yeah, that's great and everything, but imagine like trying to support a heavy weight with a blancmange. It's just going to rip. So that's something I didn't want to happen. So I'm kind of worried that it's either going to be too hard and brittle, or it's going to be too soft and just rip. And like, this is all bad. And I've got this big ball that's grown on the side of my tendon, which is just sticking out from it. And I kind of got my fingers crossed thinking, I hope this isn't going to grow into a tumor or anything, or it isn't already. And I was pretty worried. Now, to compound on top of all of this, I had been perforating my tendon many times with a needle. I'd been stabbing it up and causing loads of little perforations all in this one area. So if you imagine a piece of paper in like a tear-off ring binder, or the edge of a stamp where you've got all those little holes punched, this area, this line of weakness, is a point where you can easily rip the material. And I realized this. I saw there was a big ball growing on the side of my tendon, and I desisted these localized tendon injections, and I went over to kind of using the peptides more systemically, using them in other parts of my body where I was experiencing injuries and overuse problems from the workouts I was doing. And things have since calmed down. I'm very happy to say that The lump is no longer visible through the skin. I was kind of worried about showing my arm to people, like my parents and stuff like this, because there's a big ball sticking out and you could see it through the skin. It looked unusual, unsightly, and I felt guilty that I'd caused this and it could be a problem. So that wasn't cool. And yeah, I was kind of worried about it, to be honest with you. Since then, it has reduced in size massively. It's no longer the size of the end of my little finger, and it's now, I don't know, like I've got this hole here where there's an abscess from some stitches that are just trying to escape as well that haven't been removed. Now the affected area, I can pinch it like this. This is a lump on the side of the tendon which I can pinch, and it's barely there at all. Like you can't pinch anything above it, and below it it's just fat. Now on this area I am actually pinching the tendon, and yeah, the lump has gone down significantly, which points to the fact that it was either fluid trapped inside that I'd injected into the tendon that had formed a pocket that had caused this lump. That's one possibility. It could also be, and I think it is very likely, that it was inflammation, because a typical sign that something's causing the body to react badly to it is that you get itching in the area where there is the inflammation, basically. You get a load of itching. And I noticed that when I was injecting the GHK copper, I'd get a lot of discomfort, a slight amount of discomfort, and a lot of itching afterwards. And that's when I noticed that the ball had grown on the side of the tendon, which it felt like it was like about 1.5 times thicker than usual, at least, maybe 2 times thicker on that area. Yeah, it was not good. Now, the fact that it's gone down and it's reduced to barely, just a little bit extra thicker, shows that there has been some localized collagen synthesis from the use of these peptides, but that also there was a massive amount of inflammation, and that has all calmed down now and everything's cool. I'm very happy to say that I'm progressing nicely with my recovery. It's about 3.5 months since the surgery. I'm doing sets of 10 chin-ups. I'm deadlifting like 165 kilos, adding 5 kilos twice a week. Next time it's going to be 170 kilos. Soon I'll be back up to 270, 280, getting on for 300 kilos in the near future. So I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, this is the story about what happened to me when I started injecting peptides over and over and over again into my tendon. So let this be a lesson to y'all that BPC 157 is the safest peptide to use with regards to tendons, and the other two potentially could cause more problems. And generally, be careful. Don't be stabbing up your tendons. Don't be causing loads of holes and perforations in this structure, which needs to support a hell of a lot of load when you put it through the stresses and strains of a workout. And yeah, just like I hope that anyone that's going through this themselves recovers fast, that if they do choose to use these amazing regenerative, restorative, reparative peptides, that you do it safely and don't make the same type of mistakes that I made, whatever. So from me to you, till next time, I'll catch you later. Peace.